Well, here we are on episode 13 of Financing Your Cannabis Future with Rachel Wright and my special guest, Luna Stower. So happy to have you here.
Likewise.
Yeah. So today we have like a range of topics, and I'm so happy to have you on the show. First, I want to say thank you to the Beard Bros, Bill, Jeff, rocking it, Brian, Braden backstage, the whole Beard Bros crew, which we've assembled in community. Everybody's amazing. So just want to say hi to everybody, and what a great community. Also, I want to say that I think it's Los Angeles, Smog Shop in Los Angeles, August 29th, there's a Friday Sesh Live. I had an awesome time the last Friday Sesh Live in Malibu. It was way out there on the PCT, and I'm like, I can't believe I'm going to Malibu, but man, it was so worth it. It was like one of the best get-togethers that I've had. Great venue. So the guys know how to put on a great show and bring in the best minds from every different aspect. Advocacy, business, culture, the whole thing. So please attend. Okay.
These are legacy folks. So we always want to congratulate those who are still standing and thriving.
That's right. That's right. And they bring together a lot of the legacy people in LA and around California come to these events, which is really great. And it's a great place for us to gather. So I love that. So with that, my name is Rachel Wright, CPA of Verdant Strategies and 420 CPA. And today I'm here with the amazing Luna Stower. I see her everywhere. Just always brings so much excitement wherever you go. You put so much energy into everything that you do. You give everything your heart, and I know you have a heart for the plant. You have a heart for the people. You are, it's funny because you can cross both having heart and really being about the business too, So I think it's great when people have that intersection. Some people lead with the heart and they're unable to do the business side of things. And it's really important that we can support leading with the heart by also having a business mind. So I think that's really, really important, right?
Yeah, I would say love can be lucrative, right?
Right. Exactly. Okay. I love that. So with that, I want to say, give us a background on yourself, a little intro. How did you get in cannabis? Just tell us about yourself, please.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I am born and raised in the Bay Area in California, which was really ground zero for the Compassionate Care Act, which was replicated across the world. We were really the first, next, I believe, Israel, that had a real solid medical-based program. So since I was 11 years old in 1996, if you do the math, you know how old I am. I've been smoking it, growing it, and selling it since I was in middle school and high school. So for me, it was never a drug. It was always just ubiquitous. It was everywhere. It was a medicine. And it wasn't until I got to UC Santa Cruz that I realized, I got kicked out of the dorms for having cannabis. We got not really arrested, but like in Porter Meadow at 420, we gathered and we hotboxed the meadow, and there was a huge police presence and a big police action. And I was very young. This was 18, 19 years old. And I was like, you know what? There's no way that this makes sense. So I've been, aware of the war on drugs and prohibition. Since then, I joined SSDP, Students for Sensible Drug Policy, in Normal, down at UC Santa Cruz. And so I've been going to drug policy conferences through DPA, and different, the Marijuana Policy Project, MPP, since I was a teenager. So this has been a lifelong advocacy move. And, part of what I turned that into was I worked in prisons and jails. I got my master's in education and taught in public schools and through the parole department and juvenile halls, because I saw that the prison industrial complex and the war on drugs, it really starts with an intervention early on to explain to people what their rights are, how to navigate these systems. So, I started really big at the prison system, and then started going down to early education to try to create these moments of connection with folks, especially, growing up in Oakland. We are the site of, the drug war. Obviously, the Black Panthers started here. We are a very progressive space. So who better to do it than the Bay Area? So as we've seen it move around the world, it's been really cool to share what we've seen, the ups and the downs of regulation, whether it means legalization, commercialization, and what that process looked like moving from from a medical model. And now we're seeing that replicated across the world. So it's been really fun to travel. I was employee number one at Jetty Extracts, one of the first cannabis vape brands here in California. They just went public with Canopy. And I was the first employee at Ispire Vape Technology, which also just IPO'd on the NASDAQ a few years ago, the first cannabis vape technology company to become a publicly traded company. So to your point, going from a grassroots startup perspective to moving them into a place where we can really play on the large scale has been absolutely fabulous. And I've been so honored to be a part of it in a very humble way, to support other folks to grow to what we need to do to really create access. I mean, this is a human rights issue and a medical sovereignty issue, and we need to start treating it as such. So, you might see me in Sacramento lobbying for policies. You might see me in DC doing the same thing. You might see me on panels in Europe trying to explain to them where the landmines are. So that's kind of how I traveled around the world. I have some Spanish language skills, so I've been able to be in spaces that a lot of English speakers aren't able to be. So really connect with South and Central America. So it's a really exciting time to be in the space.
Definitely very exciting. I mean, just as we're from California, so we've seen the market in California and the struggles that we've had here. And I think just being part of new markets and also seeing opportunities for a lot of these operators, so we see a lot of our California and West Coast operators, more legacy, thinking outside the box and all the types of opportunities that there are for them. Until California, I don't know if California's going to straighten itself out, but until something else happens, let's just say. So there's a lot of opportunities for our West Coast operators, though, right?
Yeah, actually, at Champs Trade Show, it was really heartening to see Hempco is a white labeler for hemp brands. And so Cam, who just won, they just swept the California State Fair Awards, led by Anna. Sherbinsky was there. Punch Edibles and Punch was, they do solventless rosin as well. They had a little section at a mainstream show because the derivation is from hemp. They're able to now use their branding and their brand equity to move into a space that they can drop ship. They can actually sell into some of these retail shops without a dispensary license. So we're seeing people get smart about how to navigate around prohibition, right? No one asked to be siloed into hemp or cannabis. Those of us who work with the plant know that it's the same plant, but because we're having to work within this super prohibitionist context, it's really cool to see people pivoting and having that abundance mindset instead of just laying over and dying, because we could complain all day about the things that are stopping us from doing business, but it's the real legacy operators who know how to pivot and know how to make it work. So that was really exciting to see that. We see Nick from Golden State Banana. I saw Ted from Alien Labs there, and this is a space that typically you don't see regulated cannabis in. So we're figuring out ways to diversify, which anyone knows in business, you have to diversify, especially when you have some of these bans coming down the pike that we're seeing with the Mary Miller Amendment, and some of these bans within the California space, hemp bans, and flavoring bans and things like that within the vape space. So we're really, as a community, coming together. We're past our infancy. We've already had our awkward toddling stage, and now we're actually looking out, and the dust is settling a little bit, and we're able to actually be ready for when hopefully the feds hit go, and we can green light this movement that we've been working so diligently to make legit.
I love that. So as far as the hemp market, give us some ideas of some of these pivots and ways to harness the market.
So we're seeing, we're the hemp bill, the farm bill that we've seen really allow some of these hemp processors to come up, essentially allows anything that is derived from hemp was considered non-psychoactive. However, we found through chemical processes that you can actually convert CBD isolate into all of the psychoactive cannabinoids, THCV, Delta 8, Delta 9, Delta 10, Delta 11, THCP, some of these minor cannabinoids. So we've kind of been speaking of loopholes, we've been riding this loophole for a while, and we're really seeing that what we de facto decriminalized cannabis in the United States through the Farm Bill, because not everyone has the privilege like us in California to be able to walk or to a dispensary or get a delivery, or to be in a state that has a really solid underground where you can figure out where to get it. So a lot of folks in, only half of the states have really legalized. So we have folks in, some of these states that have no regulatory structures that want psychoactive cannabinoids. So we have proof of concept. We've seen the market research. People want to get high on cannabis. They don't necessarily choose the hemp side, but that's what's available to them. So we're finding that access is huge. Along with that, unfortunately, because it's unregulated, and we keep trying to say it's the cannabinoids or the substances are innocent. It's the companies and the people running them that sometimes have questionable practices. So when we see people coming out against hemp or coming out against Delta 8, we need to be really conscious as a community to not fragment too deeply, because what we're doing is we're kind of throwing ourselves out with the bathwater as well. And we need to find commonalities with what the hemp industry is doing. So we're seeing the hemp beverage expo popping up. MJ Unpacked now has a hemp beverage expo. For those of you guys who have Bevmos or Southern Wine and Spirits, you might see an end cap that says THC sold here. And you're like, what's that? So they're actually really able to introduce some of these folks, which, for a lot of us in cannabis, we're always talking about breaking into new markets, converting the canna curious, but that's hard to do when you can't use Instagram, you can't advertise, you can't take out banner ads. And a lot of these SEC rules and terms and conditions overtly restrict the, promotion of anything illegal, which is a very subjective gray area. Anything can be considered promotion. So we're finding that we're able through the hemp side, we're actually able to have those conversations, to have those dialogues, to accept payments and things like that. So shout out to LinkedIn for allowing cannabis to speak about itself, to hashtag itself, to talk within our communities. Twitter, now X, is now taking advertising money. You are able to do paid ads now, thanks to some folks at Twitter and X who understood our plight and the benefit that we can bring to their space. We all exist on these spaces, right? But we're seeing that Meta is not so friendly. They really, their CYA, protocols with their lawyers is very strict, and they really do not do a good job of manually checking out what is being considered as flagged. So they're having, they're uploading the algorithm and they're pulling all these accounts down. So people are finding that the ways that we need to be able to access our communities is changing, and the people that are succeeding are the ones that are being open-minded, flexible, not too stuck in their concept of how they should be managing their rollout plan of their business, their messaging, their marketing, being able to really see that there's different markets that are able to be accessed, and that it's really a matter of shifting our mindset and an abundance mindset instead of a scarcity mindset, which as an industry, I think we could really benefit from.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, because it reminds me of also the political infighting that we see, right? Anything that creates division makes whatever you're, dividing about stronger, right? It makes the other side stronger that you're fighting against. So, I mean, why have division in this?
Right. We always say it's not us versus them. It's us versus the big boys, big pharma, and all folks that are really trying to silence us and tell people that Marinol is the way when we know that whole plant is the way.
Right. So speaking of plants, do you want to go into other plant sciences that you've recently been around and been promoting and organizing around? I think that would be amazing conversation outside of hemp, say mycology, mushrooms.
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. So I had the privilege of curating the first ever. So Champs is the largest B2B counterculture trade show on earth since 1996. They're a huge show, kind of like an MJ BizCon, but for smoke shop buyers. So I was asked to curate a mycology section. So it was so fabulous bringing in folks. And a lot of these people either had a start in cannabis or they have their feet somehow in cannabis, obviously, in a lot of ways, the same way that Europe is kind of our protege and kind of following in our footsteps. Mycology is the same because it's going to be at some point regulated. Obviously, they're different substances, but they're both considered Schedule 1. They both are considered counterculture, and they open the mind, they open the heart, they open the soul and the body. And so that's why we've seen a lot of pushback from the systems that be, because it's not within something that they can control. So it was really beautiful seeing, and we bought, a little village. It was the first time that they ever had a real section. Normally it's just kind of randomly thrown around the show. You kind of wander and organically discover things. But with the mycology section, we wanted buyers who are used to just buying kratom or e-cig, and that's what they're used to buying in their stores. And then they have this grow kit. Well, how do I deal with a grow kit, or what's up with the spores? And so we had different vendors. We had testing kits. We had neotropic mushroom chocolate bars, everything from the medicinal to the adaptogenic to the psychedelic space, because there are, the same way in cannabis, there are loopholes in ways to keep the fruit body in the product, but have the testing results not pop for what they're looking for in psilocybin. So they're able to use the esters and other things that have the components without having to get bogged down in the issues around regulation. Like I said, we are the pivot and loophole kings and queens, and we are able to do things legally, but in a way that gives the people what they want, right? Because that's what our job as a industry is not to just shove things down people's throats that we think that they want, but actually listen to the groundswell and hear that people do. They want to grow their weed at home. They want to grow their oyster mushrooms at home, and they want to grow their psilocybin at home. Or they're too busy, or they have kids, or they have a government job and they are more nervous. They're more able to get some gummies or something that can support their anxiety or depression. Or, for example, my girl who just had a stroke and a seizure, she was unable to remember her passwords. It was 4 or 5 months after her accident. And after taking a few days of microdosing, she was able to unfurl her hand, open her phone, and remember her password. So we have real proof, thanks to Michael Pollan's book, How to Change Your Mind. And mushrooms and cannabis are both psychedelics. They're both plant medicine. They're both fungal medicine. And I think that we need to be broadening when we're protecting. I worked on the decriminalization bill here in Oakland, and it's all entheogens. Entheogens are just plants and fungi that grow outside of our bodies, that once they enter our bodies actually have systems that are made to produce psychoactive reactions to them, whether it's the delta hydroxy 11 in our liver or it's the psilocybin reaction. But these are things that we've been co-evolving with for thousands of years. It's our birthright. So it felt so cool to see all of these folks in their infancy, really starting a new movement around mycology and following some of the footsteps of what cannabis did, and able to really, come to the market with something that is a finished product. I mean, some of these products are gorgeous in gold leaf packaging with dosing guides that are super clear and approachable, and really thoughtful sourcing, like single source chocolate and, fair trade coffees, infused coffees from culture shrooms. And, we have a currently sitting, he's in Brooklyn. He's the FDNY. He's a fire department captain who is able to start a shroom company while still being an active captain, because his product is not illegal, and he's able to do it on his free time. So we're seeing real case studies of when people are willing to, put a little bit on the line, that they're really being rewarded as long as they're following the rules and they're acting in a good way and coming through in a good way. So it's been really exciting to see that space grow and to be able to, we did a seminar that was a packed room at a smoke shop show about mycology. So we're seeing that people do have questions, and we've seen this in cannabis too, where you can have the best product, you can be in the best dispensary, you can sell into it, but are you selling through? Are your people that are actually managing the conversation educated and confident, or is there some kind of a training program or a handout that's really thoughtful? We've seen some of these issues really kill good brands in their tracks in cannabis, and so now we're seeing that education is huge, and demystification is central to normalization and destigmatizing all of these plants. Because when when you remove the veil and you're like, oh, it's just that, then the fear and the overwhelm and the romanticization or the exotification of these things, it mellows out to just be like, this isn't any different than all of these other substances that are legally being sold. Let's just figure out a way to do it so that it feels conscious and aware that this is plant medicine and sacred. But we also have an epidemic of depression. We have veterans that are committing suicide, in the dozens and dozens a day. So we know that what we have isn't working. So this is the perfect timing. Humanity needs alternatives to what we've been trying, and this is the time for plant medicine.
For sure. The anti-pharmaceutical, right?
Yeah, and
it's killing our medical system. It's making us broke as a country. If we look at it from a finance standpoint, it doesn't make any sense to make the pharmaceutical companies really, really wealthy, which is what's been happening, right?
Yeah, it's the number one cause of bankruptcy is medical bills, right, in the United States.
Yeah, and I think if we could put, medicine back into people's hands, that's why the prohibition obviously is happening. What are your thoughts in there?
Yeah, so we are seeing, we saw a little bit of interest from like Mitch McConnell and Kentucky and some of these states that were losing market share, as we're seeing tobacco and alcohol use dramatically decreasing, with people having the option of having other plant medicines and other recreational substances. When you can go in and just buy a 10 milligram drink, why would you buy wine? So there's a really beautiful kind of an emergence of that. But then there's also a lot of pushback. We're seeing that our current administration is thriving thriving on chaos, right? And we were hoping that cannabis would benefit from that, and maybe it will. We obviously saw Rand Paul. For those who don't know, the Mary Miller Amendment was to redo the hemp farm bill, which has SNAP benefits and other things tacked onto it, which is kind of in a good way why we've been protected, because when they tack other things on, you kind of have to throw everything out. So that's why we've had this cool little bubble of protection. But they are trying to redo it so that no psychoactive cannabinoids can be made from hemp. They figured out the loophole and they're trying to cut it. So really, I've been seeing a lot of folks on the guerrilla political side, making friends, rubbing elbows with some of these Republican senators and explaining to them, this is a bipartisan issue. We saw it in California cannabis during the pandemic. Cannabis buoys economies. And if we do it right, if we have our contracts right, obviously call Rachel Wright and Verdant Strategies if you need to get your contracts or your corporation set up, or your finances and your books in order, because they're waiting for us to trip up. And if we understand our 280E limitations, if we understand how to navigate these things, then we are going to be able to actually have a seat at the table. The problem is we've been so, to your point, we can be roots and suits together, but you can't just stick to the roots. There was a lot of people who bury their head in the sand and just were like, la, 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 la. And those are not the roots that are going to be in tables of power. These are the people that are willing and able to show up and say, we understand that this is triggering. We understand that there's concerns around, addiction. And there's a lot of parents that are concerned about cannabis, but we actually have data that shows that teen use goes down in places like Colorado and California after a small spike after legalization or commercialization. It drops down because it's not sexy anymore. There's a lot. I work with all kinds of kids. All my friends have, kids in middle school and stuff like that. And their cannabis is not the thing they're trying to hide from their parents. They're not sneaking out to do it. It's not this hidden thing. So I think that we need to start creating that narrative that it's not this exciting new frontier, that it's just a medicine like everything else. And people are moving to it the same way that like cigarettes and alcohol are kind of like mundane and everyone does it. It's becoming part of that. So I think that you're going to start seeing a lot of folks, as we get more capital and more powerful as companies, we're going to have more seats at the table with some of these lawmakers. And so definitely get loud with your local representatives. They are listening to us because we are paying tax revenue. They work for us.
Yeah, absolutely. They don't realize that they do work for us because we're so busy, as an industry trying to just stay above water and, dodging the arrows that come at us with every single regulation, right? It's a nightmare. And so,
but it's been so helpful too, because we've definitely gone through a boot camp too, right? Because now we're ready for anything. So thank you.
Totally. Yeah, no, seriously. And so, what I've seen, which is very hopeful, I know we have NORML, and then we also have in California, I love COCOA is an amazing organization. They've brought together a lot of operators and, so the operators are coming to the table, actually just kind of chipping in something, and it's actually making some movements, and there's some waves being made there, right?
Absolutely.
And so instead of just having only the advocacy side, you actually are seeing the business owners stepping up and having a seat at the table by way of organizations such as that. So, and that was just an idea, literally 9 months ago, something like that, and see the kind of movement that we've had at the state level. With that kind of impact. And honestly, it's not big dollars. Contrary to popular belief, everybody can chip in a few $100s here or there, whatever you can do. Because we know it's tight for everybody. And I don't speak for them as an organization, but I'm just kind of seeing the impacts of what's happening. And it's so refreshing to see the business community, because, year after year, I hear hundreds of stories every year as I'm talking to clients that I work with, that everybody's generally feels, especially in California, and now in New York with the news that just dropped with, 100 plus licenses being closer to schools than they could imagine. I mean, how much more can these regulatory agencies just destroy the businesses that they say that they're trying to help, and revenue that they're trying to? It's just hypocrisy. It's so the only way to get a seat at the table is to make sure that you have a strong operator organization, operator led. Obviously you have to hire the professionals, have lobbyists, folks that know how to do this the right way. And it doesn't cost, you don't need millions of dollars. Everybody just needs to chip in a little something, and, write some letters, send it out to your friends. It's like grassroots organization. And we've already seen, for example, some of the state sales tax issues, excise tax issues be addressed at I think the Assembly or Senate level. And so we can actually make an impact. It doesn't take millions and millions and millions of dollars.
No,
really.
Absolutely. And I love that you're inviting people to do that too, because I always say that too. It doesn't take that much time to get on a phone call and call them. And by the way, calls and in person is like 10 to 20 times more than an email. So if you find yourself in your state capital or you have a couple minutes on your lunch break, definitely call. They tally that it's their job to say, these operators are struggling. Because to your point, like to the OCM, the Office of Cannabis Management in New York, they're taking folks' money. They are actually, this was like in California too, they'll take the application fees knowing that they weren't zoned correctly and be like, sorry, actually your $500,000 non-refundable application fee, and it's in bad faith too. And I actually just got an email from the OCM this morning, or from someone that was updating the OCM saying that they had made a mistake, and they're just so rife with
they've been scrambling since the beginning. I mean, the way they release the licenses and these regulatory agencies, they don't really think about it. What they need are business owners. They need licensed operators to have a voice at the table, right? And because then they're going to know what people are going through. Then they'll have some insights, but they don't operate like that. So we are kind of forced to organize in other ways. And it's just one more thing that as a society and as a community that we need to add to our plate, right? But that is actually what creates such resilience, right? And to that point, as we pivot to other new areas that are coming online, say Europe or South America. I like talking about Europe. That's my favorite. But just any kind of new markets, such as Europe, let's just talk about that and say, hey, in the years that we've been in the industry, we've seen everything. It takes a certain amount of resilience, doesn't it, to deal with this on a day-to-day basis for years?
A lot of it. And,
right.
Even with Spain, I mean, you go out to Spain and everyone's so confused. They're like, wait, I thought that Spain was legal. It's like, no, just because cannabis is there doesn't mean that it's legal. They're remaining to have one of the largest shows in Europe next to Mary Jane, even despite the fact that it is very illegal. I was arrested in Spain for having cannabis on me. This was just having it on me. And people are like, but you're there for the show. And it's like, yeah, but we're trying to lean into the places that we're not welcome yet and try to show, putting the cart a little bit before the horse, and show like this is going to be an important option for kids who are getting into drinking at a younger age. In Europe, kids drink really young. They have the highest use next to Asia in cigarette and tobacco use. So they're also typically, the EU GMP and the EU organic certifications are way more stringent than ours. So at the same time, so very conscious about health. When they go to the stores, everything's listed and rated on how good it is for you. They're very comfortable with that kind of a literacy. So transferring that to plant medicine, I think, is going to be really easy for them, and they're ready. Obviously, it's a Catholic country in Spain. Some of these, Munich in Germany, you go to Mary Jane in Berlin, and then you go to Munich after for vacation, and you get arrested for having a joint on you. And you're like, wait a second, I'm in the same place. But it's like, it's about winning hearts and minds, and the way that we move through it is really important. And I really appreciate Spannabis and, obviously Mary Jane, before they went public, or before they went recreational and legalized for recreational use to a certain degree, they really spoke to the home grower. They worked the little loophole. Same thing what New York and Florida did. They found the first kind of rollout of what legalization looked like. They went heavy into it. So the soil companies, the lights, and what we've really seen, and actually High Times just did a big expose on this, is the seed and genetic space has been blowing up, because they're able to do license partnerships, they're able to ship, they're able to bank, they're able to advertise, they're able to bring in influencer marketing. And obviously it's a pretty, it's not a crazy overhead, right? You're not producing clones, you're not producing full plants, the pesticide resistance and all of the things that happen with the sensitive ag products. It's not necessarily happening with seeds. So you're seeing people kind of find something that feels good, that feels safe, that's able to create revenue out the gate. And then obviously they'll be able to turn it to whatever they need to once the regulations open up to a broader manufacturing and product offering spectrum. But it is cool to see, we're talking about pivoting, that people have been really successful. And not only are you seeing, for example, Refined Genetics here in Santa Cruz, California, and Maverick Seeds in Spain. They just had a collaboration and they're going to be doing work together. Sherbinsky had a launch a couple years ago in Spain with some of the seed companies out there. So it's, we got to find whatever boat is not sinking, hop to that, and then wait to see the next thing. And it does create a real resilience and a supportiveness. And now in South America, you're seeing the ability to export. So Colombia is able to export, Brazil is able to import. They have really strong medical, considerations in Brazil. So now you're seeing all the South American companies. Uruguay was the first country in the world to fully decriminalize and legalize for commercial grow and export. So South America is actually, even though their economy isn't showing it in general, their meta economy, their cannabis, as far as hearts and minds, they're really moving forward. Chile is looking at things now. So it's been cool. I was down in South America, a few different countries, a few different times last year, and they are so excited. They are ready for this. They've been watching us. And this is also, a moment that I want to remind us.
Right.
We are the big sister of the world. Our missteps are using sex in marketing, the negative infighting, the lack of organization, the things that we've done that have worked. They're watching us, and we are just like, under a magnifying glass, and everything that we do is being replicated. Which, even in Oakland, unfortunately, our equity provisions were written by people that were selfishly trying to get their people in line, and unfortunately, everyone copied and pasted our equity provisions everywhere, which allowed for a predatory approach of a general applicant and someone who had been hit by the war on drugs to match together in order to give the general access to a license. But then that equity partner can't sell their part. They can't transfer to another name. They can't transfer to another location. So it ended up being that some of them went under because they don't have the institutional funding. They don't have necessarily 5 generations of Harvard graduates, right? So, the general applicants ended up eating up. So it just was another way to create more of a class distinction. So we need to be really conscious and proud, but also very careful and responsible about what we're saying, how we're saying it, how we're moving, because we are being watched, and our little brothers and sisters who are, not to infantilize them, but just what it is. They're in the infancy of their stages. They're watching us. So watch how you advertise, watch what you're, how you show up at trade shows, watch your professionalism and, making sure that we're matching, this interest in profit, but also this bottom line of people, because we are going to see whatever we do, good, bad, and ugly, replicated everywhere. So no pressure, but don't fuck it up.
That sounds like just a little bit of pressure, No.
Yeah, just like healthy pressure.
That's right.
Yeah, we definitely need some ethical, intentional leadership around the world. So that's just
for sure. And we are seeing that because I think cannabis globally is it's still not like normalized by any means or fully accepted, but it's definitely on its way. It's not where it was. We've made a lot of progress over the last 5-10 years. So.
Yeah, people aren't necessarily getting kicked out of their houses because their parents find out that, a lot has changed in the last 5 years. No one thinks that you're a loser POS because you consume cannabis. There's some concerns, but it's not like the heroin reaction that we used to have. Years ago.
Like I remember even servicing some of our clients, they would call us and they're like, we just got raided, or, that doesn't really, I actually have heard it happens once in a great while, but it doesn't happen nearly as frequently as it used to happen. If at all. It's very strange to get those kind of calls. It used to be very normal.
So the new raid is the bans on our social media accounts.
True.
Right. So that's been like the biggest thing right now. I don't know if you've noticed how many people have dropped off of their Instagram accounts. And these are people who are just doing education. They're not even smoking on screen, but just a banned hashtag where they use the word cannabis in their caption, or they're doing a collaborator post with someone who's shadow banned. So, I've just been telling people, try to move off of Meta, use your Meta platform as a landing page that's very kind of not sterile, but very, approachable, something that an investor would be able to look at, and then have your Substack or your website in the link in bio and get people off of some of these platforms that are the new raids, the new kind of chop down, because really that's kind of how it is now. If you don't have a presence on social media, it's really difficult. So this is really a time that, we have to stay ahead of local, federal, and platform level restrictions, like read the terms and conditions. I even use AI. I'll type in like, what are the new algorithmic updates that Meta has created? So I stopped using hashtags altogether, because the hashtag Thanksgiving or the hashtag party, it will be banned. So, and anyway, no one ever uses that. I mean, how often do you actually click on a hashtag and follow it and search things by hashtag? So we use it sometimes without really thinking about it. But I'm noticing a lot of flyers and a lot of captions, they're using trigger words like psychedelics, cannabis, or they're posting a cannabis sales rep job, and all that the bot sees, because this is just an algorithm, right? These aren't humans.
Right.
If you see haters that are manually reporting you, that might happen a little bit. But if you're getting your thing taken down, it's probably because of a post, 7 months ago that said cannabis sales rep in a story. Because they're checking stories, they're checking DMs. So if you're, chatting about things offline in a DM, it's all in their platform. So we really need to be conscious of this, and really be trying to use smarter approaches to not build this beautiful brand. And then all of a sudden at 10,000 followers, I mean, look at Beard Bros. They're the kings of getting banned, and all they are doing is posting headlines. But in those headlines, we need to be conscious, like, what are the trigger words? How do we avoid them? And how do we move people off into these kind of, like, this is going to be on YouTube. We want to start moving to places that allow us to have these conversations without just a generic bot deciding until 90 days until a human actually looks at it and goes, oh, this clearly wasn't promoting cannabis. This is like a news story that is just a screenshot of a literal news story. So even though we're right, it's like, do you want to be right, or do you want to have peace? Do you want to be righteous, or do you want to actually do business? And so some of us are kind of like, but I want to be able to post me smoking. It's like, okay, well, then you don't have access to this space, and it's going to be harder. So I just wanted to remind people that even though a lot of us will get frustrated, we're like, well, screw it, I just don't want to be on Instagram. It's like, but the majority of your clients are still on it. So until we get off of it and have something that people can see, your story, your brand, something that feels very neutral and very just like normal business, and then get into those conversations in your newsletters, in your dialogues, and some of your Substacks, and your blog, things like that. So it's just an invitation to remind people, we don't have to throw Meta out or keep complaining about it. Let's take responsibility and be accountable to what we are posting, and stop, blowing up the spot. Like, the block is hot because of us. We are bringing the attention to ourselves. Like, we're writing psychedelics in our, so, this is for all of the communities. Like, be conscious of how we're showing up, because if you want to have a seat at the table, you can't do it without a social presence, unfortunately, or it's harder, it's more difficult.
Totally. There's a way to be rebellious, right? And counterculture, I guess, so to speak. So
smile and watch your back. That's the rule.
Yeah, no, totally. So with that, I actually, we could talk forever, as we do actually often. So with that, actually, I think we're going to wrap up a bit. I think we covered a lot of topics, but let's definitely weave. I mean, I think we're going to weave it together under, say, prohibition, how to defeat prohibition at our own, within our own actions, right? Mm-hmm. And I think it begins with community, our own individual actions, and there's ways that we can intentionally and thoughtfully do this, at the levels of, like you said, like social media, activism, joining organizations, or even starting some of our organizations in conversations, right?
Yeah. And I do, not to overtly plug you guys, but people like Verdant, who are, and I don't really know anyone other than you, maybe at one or two other organizations max, but like, we've been talking a lot about how to position ourselves in the external, but also like be honest with maybe the way that your finances and your books and your the way that your organization is set up might not be right, and you might not be navigating right. So call someone like a Rachel that will help you do an internal audit and make sure you're even on the right track, because that's a precursor to even everything that we're talking about. If you don't have your books right, and you have your strategy right, you're not going to move forward. So I believe that everyone's scared about the meta economy right now, and in that chaos, it's the first time that we've actually been equalized, where cannabis is no less volatile or more volatile than any other space right now, any other consumer package. or supply chain. So this is our time to actually come back to ourselves while everyone's freaking out and scrambling, and actually do a little bit of some self care and be like, are we going to, are our, you know, our projections and our profile matching what the market is and where we want to go? So that's something else that you need to think about too, is are you even in a position to scale before you start talking about scaling? What are you? So I just had to shout that out, because I've seen you change lives. You've helped people from going under. You've put millions of dollars back in people's pockets for things that really silly mistakes that a good CPA should have told them, and we just don't have them. So bless you for really being an intervention in some of these really, really sensitive moments for these businesses.
Thank you. No, I appreciate it. And I guess what I'd say is, like, how can we help either this community, this industry, if we can't take care of ourselves first? We have to put our own oxygen mask on, right? First. And so that means we have to work on ourselves individually, have our own goals. And then if we have businesses and we're in the industry, we have to take care of our businesses. So that's where we vote with our dollar at the end of the day, right? True. I mean, so if we don't have any dollars, how do we vote, right? How do we move these markets? Because at the end of the day, you know, politicians, you know, massive corporations, everything like that, they react based on where dollars are spent, metrics, data, everything. So that's what we control. And if we don't have it, we can't vote with it.
And a lot of us are just nervous to open our books because we've been in the underground, but like you've seen, you come from the legacy. So like, even, you know, it's like, well, I have no problem, you know, opening my books to you because I trust you and I know that you're not going to come against me. And that's, I think we need to start training people that having professionals being in your business is okay now, you guys. Like it doesn't help you to hide your sticky notes. Like, oh, you know, it's like, no, put it on a spreadsheet. Like it's okay. So to get professional, it's time.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. No doubt. No doubt. That's the only way to move the industry forward and ourselves, you know? So with that, I absolutely loved having you on here, and we'll do it again. Heart back. And I watch all the stuff that you do, like including that mycology community that you've helped to form. And just, I watch everything that you do, and I really respect you so much. And, you know, you're an asset to our community and to our world. And with that, thank you so much, Luna.
Thank you. I feel the same way about you. We're building something big that we could be proud of.
That's right. That's right. Awesome.
Signing off.
Peace.